The moment I saw Margaret's perfectly manicured finger pointing directly at me in that Christmas photo, I knew my life at Henderson Marketing was about to change forever. What I didn't know was that her petty act of exclusion would eventually lead to the most satisfying moment of my entire career, standing on a stage in front of 300 industry professionals, holding the microphone that would determine her husband's professional fate. My name is Sarah Chen, and I've been working in marketing for 8 years, the last 4 of which have been at Henderson Marketing in downtown Chicago. The office sits on the 32nd floor of a gleaming skyscraper overlooking Lake Michigan, where winter winds howl against the floor-to-ceiling windows like angry spirits trying to break through our carefully climate-controlled world. Before we dive deeper into this story, I want to ask you to subscribe to our channel to help us bring you more real stories like this one. Also, please comment below and let us know where you're watching from. We love connecting with viewers from all around the world. December in Chicago is brutal, and that particular December felt especially harsh. The city was blanketed in a thick layer of snow that never seemed to melt, just accumulated day after day until the sidewalks became narrow tunnels between towering white walls. Inside our office, though, the atmosphere was warm with holiday cheer, at least until Margaret Henderson decided to make her annual appearance. I should explain about the Hendersons. David Henderson, our CEO, is one of those rare executives who actually earned his position through talent rather than inheritance or connections. At 45, he's built Henderson Marketing from a small startup into one of Chicago's most respected advertising agencies. He's the kind of boss who remembers your birthday, asks about your family, and genuinely celebrates your successes. His wife Margaret, however, is an entirely different story. Margaret Henderson is what happens when old money meets new insecurity. Her family owned steel mills back when Chicago was the industrial heart of America, but she married David when he was still struggling to get his business off the ground. Now that Henderson Marketing has become successful, she seems to have appointed herself as the unofficial queen of our office, despite having no official role in the company whatsoever. The Christmas party planning had been going on for weeks. Every December, Henderson Marketing throws an elaborate celebration at the Palmer House Hotel, complete with a live jazz band, open bar, and a photographer to capture the evening's festivities. It's genuinely one of the highlights of our work year, a chance for everyone from interns to senior executives to relax and celebrate another successful year together. I had been working closely with David on the Brennan Industries account, our biggest client. It was a challenging campaign that required late nights, weekend work, and countless strategy sessions. David and I had developed a strong professional rapport, the kind of working relationship built on mutual respect and shared dedication to excellence. We would often grab coffee together to discuss campaign strategies, and he frequently praised my creative input during team meetings. Looking back, I realized this professional closeness was probably what triggered Margaret's jealousy, though at the time I was completely oblivious to the undercurrents of tension building beneath the surface of our workplace dynamics. The morning of the Christmas party, Margaret arrived at our office unannounced. This wasn't unusual. She often dropped by to have lunch with David or to remind everyone of her presence in his life. She was wearing a burgundy wool coat that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the harsh December wind outside. I was at my desk, putting finishing touches on the Brennan Industries presentation that David would be delivering the following week, when I heard her distinctive laugh echoing from his corner office. Margaret has one of those laughs that sounds like it should be pleasant but somehow always carries an edge of superiority, as if she's perpetually amused by how much better she is than everyone around her. Around 3 in the afternoon, the photographer arrived to take our annual company Christmas photo. This was always a highlight of our holiday celebration, a tradition where everyone in the office, from the newest intern to David himself, would gather in the main conference room for a group photo that would later be displayed in our lobby and included in our holiday cards to clients. We all assembled in the conference room, with its long mahogany table pushed against the wall to make space. The photographer, a cheerful middle-aged man named Tom who had been documenting our company events for years, began arranging us in rows. The senior staff, including David and myself, were positioned in the front row, with junior employees and support staff arranged in ascending rows behind us. I found myself standing directly next to David, which made sense given that I was the lead account manager on our most important client. Margaret was positioned on his other side, her arm possessively linked through his, as she smiled brilliantly at the camera. Everything seemed perfectly normal as Tom adjusted his lighting and prepared to take the shot. Then Margaret leaned over to whisper something in the photographer's ear. Tom looked confused for a moment, glanced at me, then back at Margaret. She whispered something else, more insistently this time, and I saw her hand move to her purse. Tom's expression changed to one of uncomfortable understanding, and he cleared his throat. "Actually, let me rearrange this a bit," Tom announced, his voice carrying an apologetic tone that immediately made me suspicious. "Sarah, could you move back to the second row? I think the composition will be better that way." I felt a flush of confusion and embarrassment wash over me. In 4 years of company photos, senior staff had always been positioned in the front row. Moving me to the back didn't make any compositional sense, especially since I was wearing a bright red dress that would have provided a nice color balance in the front row arrangement. But what could I do? Challenge the photographer in front of the entire company? Make a scene about photo positioning while Margaret Henderson stood there with that satisfied smile playing at the corners of her perfectly painted lips? I swallowed my pride and moved to the second row, squeezing between Jennifer from accounting and Marcus from the creative department. As I stood there, displaced and humiliated, I caught David's eye. He looked confused and slightly annoyed, but the photographer was already counting down from 3, and there wasn't time to address whatever had just happened. The flash went off, capturing what would become the official Henderson Marketing Christmas 2023 photo, with me conspicuously absent from my rightful place among the senior staff. After the photo session, as everyone dispersed back to their desks to finish up work before the evening's party, David approached me with a concerned expression. "Sarah, what was that about?" he asked quietly. "Why did Tom move you to the back row?" I hesitated. "How do you tell your boss that you suspect his wife paid the photographer to exclude you from the front row without sounding paranoid or petty?" "I'm not sure," I replied carefully. "Maybe he just thought the composition looked better that way." David frowned. "That doesn't make sense. You're senior staff. You should have been in the front row." He glanced around, making sure we weren't overheard. "Did Margaret say something to you?" The concern in his voice was genuine, and I could see that he was starting to piece together what had likely happened. But I also knew that putting him in the middle of whatever game his wife was playing wasn't fair to him or productive for anyone involved. "It's fine, David," I said with a forced smile. "Really, it's just a photo." But it wasn't just a photo, and we both knew it. In the corporate world, these seemingly small gestures carry enormous symbolic weight. Being excluded from the senior staff row in the company Christmas photo was a public signal that my position and contributions were somehow lesser, somehow dispensable. It was a subtle but unmistakable message about my place in the Henderson marketing hierarchy. That evening, at the Christmas party, Margaret was in her element. She held court at a table near the dance floor, regaling anyone who would listen with stories about her recent shopping trip to New York and her plans for their upcoming vacation to Aspen. She was wearing a stunning black cocktail dress and diamond earrings that caught the light every time she moved her head, creating tiny sparkles that seemed to announce her presence across the room. I tried to enjoy the party despite the afternoon's humiliation. The Palmer House ballroom was beautifully decorated with white lights and evergreen garlands. The jazz trio was playing all the classic holiday standards, and the food was exceptional as always. My colleagues were in good spirits, celebrating another successful year and looking forward to the holidays ahead. But every time I saw Margaret's satisfied smile, every time she made eye contact with me across the room with that look of subtle triumph, I felt the sting of that afternoon's dismissal all over again. She had successfully established a new dynamic, one where she had the power to diminish my professional standing with nothing more than a whispered word and probably a $50 bill to a photographer. What made it worse was that I genuinely loved my job at Henderson Marketing. The work was challenging and creative, the team was talented and collaborative, and David was the best boss I'd ever had. The thought that Margaret's jealousy and insecurity could potentially undermine everything I'd worked to build was deeply unsettling. As the evening wound down, David made his way over to where I was standing with a few colleagues near the bar. "Sarah, great work on the Brennan presentation," he said warmly. "I'm really excited about the pitch next week. I think we've got something special." "Thank you," I replied, feeling genuinely pleased by his recognition. "I'm confident they're going to love the campaign concept." Margaret appeared at David's elbow so quickly it was almost like she had materialized out of thin air. "Darling, we should probably head home soon," she said, her voice sweet but her eyes fixed on me with unmistakable hostility. "You know how early your flight is tomorrow." David was flying to New York the next morning for a series of client meetings, something I had helped him prepare for over the past several weeks. "You're right," he agreed. "Sarah, we'll touch base when I get back on Thursday to finalize everything for the Brennan presentation." Absolutely, I said. Have a safe trip. As they walked away, Margaret's hand possessively placed on David's arm. She looked back at me one more time with that same satisfied smile. The message was clear. She had successfully asserted her dominance, and she wanted me to know it. I left the party that night with a strange mixture of anger and determination churning in my stomach. Margaret Henderson had underestimated me if she thought a petty photo manipulation would be enough to diminish my commitment to my work or my relationship with my colleagues. I had been building my career on merit, hard work, and genuine professional relationships, not on proximity to power or social manipulation. What I didn't know that night was that the universe was already setting up the perfect opportunity for karmic justice. One that would unfold exactly 3 months later at the Chicago Marketing Excellence Awards ceremony. The Chicago Marketing Excellence Awards are the most prestigious recognition in our industry's local ecosystem. Every year, the Chicago Marketing Association honors the best campaigns, the most innovative strategies, and the top professionals in the field. It's the kind of event where careers are made, business relationships are forged, and industry reputations are solidified. Henderson Marketing had been nominated in 3 categories that year, including Best Integrated Campaign for our work with Brennan Industries. David was also nominated for Marketing Executive of the Year, a recognition that would significantly elevate both his personal profile and the company's reputation in the Chicago business community. I had played a significant role in the Brennan Industries campaign, contributing key strategic insights and creative direction that had helped deliver exceptional results for the client. The campaign had increased their brand awareness by 47% and generated a 23% increase in sales over the 6-month implementation period. It was the kind of success story that marketing professionals dream about, and I was incredibly proud of my contribution. In February, about 6 weeks before the award ceremony, David called me into his office for what I assumed would be a routine project discussion. The late winter afternoon light was filtering through his windows, casting long shadows across his desk where several industry publications were scattered alongside project folders and his ever-present coffee cup. "Sarah, I have some exciting news," he began, his face showing the kind of genuine enthusiasm that had always made him such an inspiring leader. "The Chicago Marketing Association has asked me to serve as the Master of Ceremonies for this year's awards ceremony." I felt a surge of excitement for him. Being selected as the MC for the Chicago Marketing Excellence Awards was a tremendous honor, one that would position him as a thought leader in the local marketing community. "David, that's incredible. Congratulations." "Thank you," he said, clearly pleased by my enthusiasm. "But here's the thing. I'm going to need help preparing for this. There are over 30 awards to present, introductions for keynote speakers, and I want to make sure every moment of the ceremony feels polished and professional." I nodded, already understanding where this conversation was heading. "You need someone to help you prepare your remarks and coordinate the presentation logistics." "Exactly. And I can't think of anyone I'd rather work with on this than you. Your attention to detail and your understanding of what makes compelling presentations would be invaluable." I felt a warm glow of professional pride. This was exactly the kind of high-visibility project that could significantly advance my career, not to mention the opportunity to work closely with David on something that clearly meant a lot to him. "I would be honored to help," I replied without hesitation. Over the following weeks, David and I worked closely together to develop his presentation materials for the awards ceremony. We spent hours crafting introductions for each award category, writing transitions between segments, and rehearsing his delivery to ensure everything flowed smoothly. The work required us to spend significant time together, often staying late in the office to perfect his remarks or meeting early in the morning to go through presentation logistics. It was exactly the kind of collaborative, creative work that I loved most about my job, and David was consistently appreciative of my contributions. What I didn't fully grasp at the time was how our increased collaboration was being perceived by Margaret. She had resumed her periodic unannounced visits to the office, often appearing around 5 or 6 o'clock with the apparent intention of intercepting David before he left for the day. On several occasions, she arrived to find David and me working together in the conference room, presentation materials spread across the table, deep in discussion about ceremony logistics. Each time, her expression would tighten almost imperceptibly, and she would find some reason to interrupt our work session. "Darling, you promised we'd have dinner with the Worthingtons tonight," she would say, or "David, your mother called and needs to speak with you urgently." There was always something that required his immediate attention, something that effectively ended our work session and removed him from my professional sphere. I began to notice a pattern in these interruptions, but I tried to give Margaret the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps she was simply protective of their personal time together, or maybe she was concerned about David overworking himself. It didn't occur to me that she might be systematically trying to undermine our professional collaboration. 3 weeks before the award ceremony, David asked me to attend a planning meeting with the Chicago Marketing Association event coordinators. The meeting was scheduled for 2 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon at the association's downtown offices, and I was excited about the opportunity to be involved in the high-level event planning. The morning of the meeting, Margaret arrived at our office around 11 o'clock. She was carrying a large shopping bag from Nordstrom and seemed to be in an unusually good mood, chatting pleasantly with the receptionist and complimenting Jennifer from accounting on her new haircut. I was at my desk, putting finishing touches on some presentation notes for the afternoon meeting, when I heard Margaret's voice from David's office. At first, their conversation seemed normal, casual discussion about weekend plans and family obligations. But gradually, their voices became more intense, though I couldn't make out specific words through David's closed door. Around 12:30, David emerged from his office looking frustrated and slightly stressed. He walked directly to my desk, his expression apologetic. "Sarah, I'm sorry, but I need to cancel our meeting this afternoon," he said quietly. "Something's come up that I need to handle." I looked up from my computer, surprised by this sudden change in plans. "Is everything okay?" "Yes, it's fine. Just some personal matters that need attention. Can you handle the meeting with the event coordinators without me? You know the material as well as I do at this point." I felt a flicker of unease. David had been extremely invested in every aspect of the awards ceremony planning, and it was unlike him to miss an important coordination meeting. But his tone suggested that whatever had come up was not something he wanted to discuss in detail. "Of course," I replied. "I'll take detailed notes and brief you on everything when I get back." "Perfect. I really appreciate your flexibility on this." As David returned to his office, I caught a glimpse of Margaret through his open doorway. She was sitting in one of his guest chairs, her posture rigid with what looked like barely controlled anger. Their eyes met for just a moment, and I saw something in her expression that I had never seen before, not just dislike, but genuine hatred. The meeting with the Chicago Marketing Association went well. The event coordinators were impressed by my knowledge of David's presentation requirements and my understanding of the ceremony flow. We reviewed logistics for each award presentation, confirmed timing for transitions between segments, and discussed contingency plans for potential technical issues. During the meeting, Linda Martinez, the association's executive director, made a comment that stuck with me. "David is so fortunate to have such a capable team supporting him," she said. "It's clear that you've been instrumental in helping him prepare for this role." "Thank you," I replied. "David's success reflects well on all of us at Henderson Marketing." "Absolutely. And I have to say, your insights today have been incredibly valuable. If David ever decides he doesn't want to share you, we'd love to have someone with your skills on our team." It was a throwaway comment, the kind of professional compliment that happens in business meetings all the time. But Linda's words planted a seed of possibility that would become important later in this story. When I returned to the office that afternoon, David was nowhere to be found. His assistant told me he had left around 1 o'clock and wouldn't be back for the rest of the day. I spent the remainder of the afternoon documenting the meeting outcomes and preparing a comprehensive briefing for David to review the following morning. The next day, David seemed distracted and somewhat withdrawn. Our usual easy collaboration felt strained, and he seemed to be making an effort to keep our interactions brief and focused strictly on business matters. "How did the meeting go yesterday?" he asked, his tone professional but lacking the warmth that usually characterized our working relationship. I provided a thorough briefing on everything we had discussed with the event coordinators, but I could sense that his attention was elsewhere. When I finished my report, he simply nodded and said, "Thanks, Sarah. I'll review these notes and let you know if I have any questions." It was a perfectly appropriate response, but it felt like a door being closed between us. The easy camaraderie that had developed over our weeks of collaboration seemed to have evaporated overnight. Over the following days, I noticed that Margaret's visits to the office became more frequent. She would arrive with lunch for David, suggest that they take afternoon walks together, or simply appear with some excuse to interrupt whatever work he was doing. And increasingly, David seemed to be responding to these interruptions by cutting short any extended time we spent working together. I began to understand that Margaret's campaign against me had escalated beyond photo manipulations and subtle social signals. She was now actively working to limit my professional interaction with David, and unfortunately, her strategy appeared to be working. But the universe has a way of providing opportunities for justice when we least expect them. 2 weeks before the awards ceremony, on a cold March morning that felt more like January, Linda Martinez called me directly. "Sarah, I hope you don't mind me reaching out to you personally," she began, "but I have a rather unusual request." "Of course, Linda. How can I help?" "Well, we've encountered an unexpected situation with our awards ceremony. Our originally scheduled keynote speaker, Patricia Williams from Williams & Associates, has had to cancel due to a family emergency. We're scrambling to find a replacement, and the board has asked me to reach out to David about potentially expanding his role as Master of Ceremonies. I felt a surge of excitement for David. Being asked to deliver the keynote address in addition to serving as MC would be an incredible honor and a significant boost to his professional profile. "That sounds like a wonderful opportunity for David," I said. "I'm sure he'd be thrilled to take on the additional responsibility." "That's what we were hoping," Linda continued. "But here's where it gets complicated. The keynote address is a substantial addition to his existing MC duties. We're talking about a 20-minute presentation to 300 industry professionals, plus the additional coordination required to integrate it into the ceremony flow." I began to see where this was heading. "We need someone to help David develop and prepare the keynote presentation," Linda explained. "Someone who understands both his presentation style and the awards ceremony format. Based on our meeting 2 weeks ago, you seem like the obvious choice." "I would be happy to help," I replied, though I wondered how David would react to this additional collaboration given the recent coolness in our working relationship. "There's one more thing," Linda added, and I could hear a slight hesitation in her voice. "The board has also asked if you would be willing to introduce David before his keynote address. It would be a brief introduction, maybe 3 or 4 minutes, highlighting his professional accomplishments and his contributions to the Chicago marketing community." I felt my heart rate increase. Being asked to introduce the keynote speaker at the Chicago Marketing Excellence Awards would put me on stage in front of every major marketing professional in the city. It would be an incredible professional opportunity, the kind of visibility that could open doors throughout the industry. "I would be honored," I said, trying to keep my voice level despite my excitement. "Wonderful. I'll call David this afternoon to discuss the keynote opportunity and let him know that you'll be helping with the preparation and providing his introduction." After I hung up the phone, I sat at my desk for several minutes, absorbing the magnitude of what had just happened. Not only would I be working closely with David again on a high-profile project, but I would also have my own moment on stage at the most prestigious marketing event of the year. The irony wasn't lost on me. Margaret's efforts to diminish my professional relationship with David had inadvertently positioned me to receive one of the biggest career opportunities of my life. Her attempts to push me into the background had somehow resulted in my being elevated to center stage. That afternoon, David called me into his office to discuss the keynote opportunity. His demeanor was more animated than it had been in weeks, and I could see that he was genuinely excited about the additional responsibility. "Linda tells me you've agreed to help me prepare the keynote presentation," he said. "Absolutely. This is an incredible opportunity for you, David. I'm excited to be part of it. And she mentioned that you'll be introducing me before the presentation. That means a lot to me, Sarah. I can't think of anyone who better understands what Henderson Marketing has accomplished over the past year." For the first time in weeks, David's tone carried the warmth and professional respect that had always characterized our working relationship. Whatever tension had developed between us seemed to evaporate in the face of this shared opportunity. "I'll make sure the introduction properly highlights your achievements," I promised. "I know you will. And Sarah," he paused, looking at me with an expression of genuine appreciation, "I want you to know how much I value your contributions to this company. Your work on the Brennan account, your help with the ceremony preparation. You've been instrumental in so much of our success this year." His words felt like a professional vindication after weeks of subtle marginalization. Whatever Margaret had been doing to create distance between us, David clearly recognized the value of our collaboration and the quality of my work. Over the following 2 weeks, David and I worked together more intensively than we ever had before. The keynote presentation required substantial research into industry trends, analysis of Henderson Marketing's position within the Chicago business community, and careful crafting of messages that would resonate with our audience of marketing professionals. We spent long hours in the conference room, developing presentation slides, refining David's key messages, and rehearsing his delivery. The work was challenging and creative, exactly the kind of high-level strategic thinking that I loved most about my job. During this period, Margaret's office visits became even more frequent and increasingly tense. She would arrive with barely concealed frustration, often interrupting our work sessions with urgent requests for David's attention that seemed manufactured for the purpose of breaking up our collaboration. "David, the caterer needs to confirm the menu for Saturday's dinner party," she would announce, despite the fact that their dinner party was still 4 days away. Or, "Darling, your dry cleaner called and needs to speak with you immediately about your tuxedo," when David's tuxedo had been ready for pickup for over a week. Each interruption felt increasingly desperate, as if Margaret could sense that her previous strategy of creating distance between David and me was no longer working. The importance of the keynote presentation and the tight deadline meant that David was prioritizing our collaboration over her social scheduling demands. I also began working on my introduction for David, researching his professional background, gathering details about Henderson Marketing's recent achievements, and crafting remarks that would effectively set the stage for his keynote presentation. This research revealed aspects of David's career that I hadn't fully appreciated before. His journey from struggling startup founder to respected industry leader was genuinely inspiring, marked by innovative campaigns, ethical business practices, and a commitment to developing talent within his organization. I realized that my introduction would be more than just a professional formality. It would be an opportunity to tell the story of David's contributions to Chicago's marketing community and to position Henderson Marketing as a company built on merit and excellence rather than social connections or inherited advantage. The night before the awards ceremony, David and I stayed late at the office for a final rehearsal. The building was quiet except for the occasional sound of the security guard making his rounds, and the city lights stretched out below us through the conference room windows. "I think we're ready," David said after we finished running through his presentation one last time. "Sarah, I can't thank you enough for everything you've done to make this possible. This keynote opportunity is going to be significant for Henderson Marketing, and it wouldn't have happened without your contributions." "Thank you, David. It's been an honor to work on this with you." As we gathered our materials and prepared to leave, David turned to me with a more serious expression. "Sarah, I owe you an apology," he said quietly. I looked at him with surprise. "An apology? For what?" "For the distance I created between us over the past few weeks. I allowed personal concerns to interfere with our professional relationship, and that wasn't fair to you or to the quality of work we produced together." His words confirmed what I had suspected, that Margaret's campaign to limit our collaboration had been more successful than I had realized. But David's acknowledgement of the situation felt like a professional validation. "I understand," I replied. "These kinds of situations can be complicated." "They can be," he agreed. "But going forward, I want you to know that my professional decisions will be based solely on merit and what's best for Henderson Marketing. You've proven yourself to be an invaluable member of this team, and I won't let personal politics undermine that again." We shook hands in the conference room that night, and I felt like we had reestablished not just our working relationship, but a mutual respect that had been tested and proven resilient. The morning of the Chicago Marketing Excellence Awards dawned clear and crisp, with early April sunshine streaming through my apartment windows as I prepared for what I knew would be one of the most important professional days of my life. I had chosen a navy blue dress that was professional but elegant, paired with the pearl necklace my grandmother had given me for my college graduation. Looking at myself in the mirror, I felt confident and prepared for the opportunity ahead. The ceremony was being held at the Chicago Hilton, in their grand ballroom, a stunning space with crystal chandeliers and gold accents that provided the perfect backdrop for the industry's most prestigious event. I arrived early to coordinate with the event organizers and to do a final sound check for my introduction of David. The ballroom was already buzzing with activity as marketing professionals from across Chicago gathered for the evening's celebration. I recognized faces from competing agencies, client companies, and industry organizations. Basically everyone who mattered in Chicago's marketing ecosystem was in attendance. David arrived about an hour before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, looking polished and confident in his tuxedo. We spent a few minutes reviewing his keynote presentation one final time and discussing the logistics for his introduction. "Remember," I told him, "after I finish the introduction, wait for the applause to settle before you begin speaking. And don't forget to pause after your opening joke. It's funnier if you give the audience time to laugh." "Got it," he replied with a smile. "Sarah, are you nervous about your introduction?" "A little," I admitted, "but mostly excited. This is exactly the kind of opportunity I've been working toward." "You're going to be great," Just remember that everyone in this room respects you and wants you to succeed." About 30 minutes before the ceremony began, I spotted Margaret entering the ballroom. She was wearing a stunning emerald green gown that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, and she commanded attention as she made her way through the crowd, greeting acquaintances and positioning herself at a prominent table near the front of the room. Our eyes met across the ballroom, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of surprise cross her face. I realized that she probably hadn't known about my role in tonight's ceremony, hadn't known that her husband's biggest professional moment of the year would be introduced by the woman she had spent months trying to marginalize. The recognition in her eyes quickly transformed into something much less pleasant. She understood, perhaps for the first time, that her attempts to diminish my professional standing had not only failed but had inadvertently elevated me to exactly the kind of high-visibility role she had been trying to prevent. I smiled and nodded politely in her direction, then turned my attention back to the ceremony preparations. Tonight was about professional excellence and industry recognition, not personal drama. As the ceremony began, I took my place at the side of the stage, waiting for my moment to step into the spotlight. Linda Martinez was serving as the evening's host, guiding the audience through the various award presentations and building toward David's keynote address, which was scheduled as the evening's culminating event. The ceremony proceeded smoothly, with winners being announced in categories ranging from Best Social Media Campaign to Most Innovative Use of Technology in Marketing. Each acceptance speech was brief but heartfelt, and the energy in the room remained high throughout the evening. Henderson Marketing won the award for Best Integrated Campaign for our work with Brennan Industries. David accepted the award on behalf of our team, and during his brief acceptance remarks, he specifically acknowledged my contributions to the campaign's success. "This campaign succeeded because of the talented team at Henderson Marketing," he said from the podium. "In particular, I want to recognize Sarah Chun, whose strategic insights and creative vision were instrumental in delivering exceptional results for our client." The recognition felt wonderful, but I knew it was just a prelude to the main event. As the evening progressed toward David's keynote presentation, I felt my anticipation building. Finally, Linda Martinez approached the podium for the introduction that would bring me onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for this evening's keynote address," she announced to the audience. "Our speaker tonight is a leader who has built one of Chicago's most respected marketing agencies through innovation, integrity, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. To introduce our keynote speaker, please welcome Sarah Chun from Henderson Marketing." The spotlight found me as I walked across the stage, and I felt a surge of adrenaline as I approached the podium. 300 of Chicago's marketing professionals were looking at me expectantly, waiting to hear what I had to say about David Henderson and Henderson Marketing. I took a breath, looked out at the audience, and began the introduction I had crafted so carefully. "Good evening. 4 years ago, I joined Henderson Marketing as an account manager, excited about the opportunity to work for a company that was building its reputation on creativity, strategic thinking, and genuine partnerships with clients. What I discovered was something even more valuable, a leader who demonstrates every day that success in our industry comes not from shortcuts or connections, but from hard work, ethical practices, and an unwavering commitment to excellence." I could see David in the wings, listening intently, and Margaret at her table in the audience, her expression unreadable. David Henderson didn't inherit his position in Chicago's marketing community, he earned it. When he founded Henderson Marketing 8 years ago, he had a vision of creating an agency that would be known not just for award-winning campaigns, but for the integrity and collaborative spirit that would make clients want to work with us year after year. I paused, allowing my words to resonate with the audience. Under David's leadership, Henderson Marketing has grown from a startup with 3 employees to one of Chicago's most respected agencies, with a client roster that includes some of the most recognizable brands in the Midwest. But what impresses me most about David as a leader is not just what Henderson Marketing has accomplished, but how we've accomplished it. I could feel the audience's attention, and I knew I had them engaged. David Henderson is the kind of CEO who remembers your birthday, who asks about your family, and who genuinely celebrates your professional accomplishments. He's the kind of leader who recognizes that a company's success is built on the talents and dedication of every team member, from senior executives to entry-level employees. As I spoke these words, I thought about Margaret's attempts to marginalize me, about the Christmas photo incident, about all the subtle ways she had tried to diminish my professional relationship with David. The irony of this moment, standing on stage in front of the entire Chicago marketing community, defining David's professional reputation and character, was not lost on me. Tonight, David will share insights about the future of marketing in Chicago, about the opportunities and challenges that lie ahead for our industry. But before he does, I want you to know that you're about to hear from someone who doesn't just talk about excellence. He lives it every day, and he inspires everyone around him to do the same. I looked out at Margaret in the audience, and for just a moment, our eyes met. I saw in her expression the full realization of what had just happened. This wasn't just an introduction, it was a public declaration of David's values and character, delivered by the woman she had tried so hard to push into the background. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the keynote speaker for the 2024 Chicago Marketing Excellence Awards, the CEO of Henderson Marketing, David Henderson. The applause was thunderous as David joined me at the podium. He shook my hand warmly, and I could see in his eyes genuine gratitude for the introduction I had just delivered. As I stepped away from the microphone and he took his place at the podium, I felt a profound sense of professional satisfaction. I had just introduced one of Chicago's most respected marketing executives to an audience of his peers, and I had done so with authority, credibility, and genuine insight into his character and accomplishments. Margaret's attempts to diminish my professional standing had not only failed, they had inadvertently positioned me for this moment of career-defining visibility. David's keynote presentation was masterful. He spoke about the evolution of marketing in the digital age, the importance of authentic brand storytelling, and the need for agencies to build genuine partnerships with their clients. His delivery was confident and engaging, and the audience responded with enthusiasm throughout his 20-minute presentation. As he concluded his remarks to sustained applause, I felt proud of the role I had played in making this moment possible. Our weeks of collaboration had resulted in a presentation that would be remembered as one of the highlights of the evening, and my introduction had effectively set the stage for his success. After the ceremony concluded, the ballroom transformed into a networking reception where industry professionals mingled over cocktails and hors d'oeuvres. I found myself surrounded by colleagues and competitors who wanted to congratulate me on my introduction and discuss potential opportunities for collaboration. Linda Martinez approached me with a broad smile. "Sarah, that introduction was absolutely perfect. You captured exactly what makes David such a respected leader in our community." "Thank you, Linda. It was an honor to have the opportunity. I meant what I said a few weeks ago about having someone with your skills on our team. The board was incredibly impressed with your presentation tonight. If you're ever interested in exploring opportunities with the Chicago Marketing Association, I hope you'll give me a call." It was the kind of career-opening conversation that happens at events like this, where professional relationships are forged and opportunities are created. As I continued to network throughout the evening, I realized that my introduction of David had accomplished something beyond just supporting his keynote presentation. It had established my own credibility and visibility within Chicago's marketing community. About an hour into the reception, David found me near the bar, where I was discussing campaign strategies with executives from 2 competing agencies. "Sarah, do you have a minute?" he asked. "Of course," I replied, excusing myself from the conversation. David led me to a quieter corner of the ballroom, away from the networking crowds. "I wanted to thank you again for everything you did to make tonight possible. Your introduction was incredible. It perfectly captured what Henderson Marketing represents and what we've accomplished together." "Thank you, David. I meant every word of it." "I know you did, and that's what made it so powerful." He paused, looking around the reception with evident satisfaction. "Sarah, I've been thinking about your role at Henderson Marketing, and I think it's time we talked about some new opportunities." I felt a surge of excitement. "What kind of opportunities?" "I want to promote you to Senior Vice President of Client Strategy. It's a position that would put you on our executive leadership team and give you oversight of all our major client relationships. After tonight, after everything you've contributed this year, I think you've more than earned it." The promotion he was describing represented a significant advancement in my career, not just in terms of title and compensation, but in terms of the strategic responsibility and industry visibility that would come with it. It was exactly the kind of professional growth I had been working toward. "David, I'm honored. Thank you for recognizing my contributions. The recognition is well-deserved. We'll discuss the details on Monday, but I wanted you to know tonight that your future at Henderson Marketing is as bright as you want to make it." As David walked away to continue his networking, I stood in that corner of the ballroom, absorbing the magnitude of what had just happened. In the span of a single evening, I had introduced Chicago's marketing community to one of their most respected leaders, elevated my own professional profile through a high-visibility presentation, and earned a significant promotion that would advance my career for years to come. The evening was winding down when I noticed Margaret making her way through the reception crowd toward where I was standing. She approached with the kind of forced smile that doesn't reach the eyes, her emerald gown rustling as she navigated between networking groups. "Sarah," she said when she reached me, her tone carefully controlled. "Congratulations on your presentation tonight. It was quite memorable." "Thank you, Margaret. It was an honor to introduce David to such a distinguished audience." "I'm sure it was." Her pause was loaded with unspoken meaning. "David speaks very highly of your professional contributions." The emphasis she placed on the word professional suggested that she understood exactly what had transpired tonight, that her attempts to marginalize me had not only failed but had inadvertently contributed to my professional elevation. "David is an exceptional leader," I replied diplomatically. "Henderson Marketing is fortunate to have him." "Yes, we are," Margaret said, the possessive pronoun clearly intentional. "And David is fortunate to have such dedicated employees." It was a subtle attempt to remind me of my place in the hierarchy, to reduce my role to that of an employee rather than a valued professional partner. But after tonight's events, the comment felt hollow and ineffective. "Thank you," I said simply. "If you'll excuse me, Linda Martinez wanted to discuss some industry initiatives with me." As I walked away from Margaret toward where Linda was standing with a group of association board members, I felt a sense of closure about the entire Christmas photo incident and everything that had followed. Margaret's petty attempt to exclude me from that holiday picture had inadvertently set in motion a series of events that led to this moment. Standing in the Chicago Hilton Ballroom, having just delivered a career-defining presentation to 300 industry professionals, with a significant promotion waiting for me on Monday morning. The drive home that night through downtown Chicago's quiet streets gave me time to reflect on the journey that had brought me to this point. 6 months earlier, I had been a dedicated but relatively anonymous account manager, working hard but not necessarily standing out in a competitive industry. Margaret's jealousy and insecurity had pushed me out of that comfortable anonymity and into situations that demanded more of me professionally. Her attempts to diminish my relationship with David had forced me to prove my value through exceptional work rather than proximity to leadership. Her efforts to marginalize me had inadvertently positioned me for opportunities one might never have pursued otherwise. And tonight, her presence in the audience as I introduced her husband had provided the perfect backdrop for demonstrating how completely her strategy had backfired. As I pulled into my apartment building's parking garage, I realized that I felt genuinely grateful for everything that had happened, including Margaret's antagonism. Without her pushing me out of my comfort zone, I might never have discovered my capacity for high-level strategic thinking, public speaking, and industry leadership. The following Monday morning, I arrived at Henderson Marketing with a new sense of confidence and purpose. The promotion David had offered would bring new challenges and responsibilities, but I felt ready for whatever opportunities lay ahead. David called me into his office around 10 o'clock to discuss the details of my new position as Senior Vice President of Client Strategy. The conversation was everything I had hoped it would be: substantive discussion of strategic responsibilities, significant compensation increase, and clear expectations for continued professional growth. "There's one more thing," David said as our meeting was concluding. "I want you to know that this promotion has nothing to do with the awards ceremony or any personal considerations. You've earned this advancement through consistently exceptional work, and I want to make sure you understand that." His clarification was both unnecessary and deeply appreciated. It confirmed that our professional relationship was based on merit and mutual respect rather than personal dynamics or external pressures. "I understand, David, and I'm excited about the opportunity to contribute at this level. I know you'll excel in this role, Sarah. You've already proven that you can handle high-pressure situations and deliver exceptional results." Over the following weeks, I settled into my new responsibilities with enthusiasm and confidence. The promotion brought me into strategic discussions about Henderson Marketing's future direction, gave me oversight of our most important client relationships, and positioned me as a visible leader within Chicago's marketing community. Margaret's visits to the office became notably less frequent after the awards ceremony. When she did appear, her interactions with me were cordially professional but lacked the underlying hostility that had characterized our previous encounters. It seemed that she had finally accepted that her campaign against me had not only failed but had contributed to my professional advancement. 3 months after the awards ceremony, Henderson Marketing was invited to pitch for the largest account in our company's history, a comprehensive marketing partnership with Midwest Industries that would represent nearly 30% of our annual revenue. David asked me to lead the pitch team, and I knew that this opportunity was a direct result of the industry visibility and credibility I had gained through my introduction at the awards ceremony. The pitch process required weeks of intensive preparation, including market research, strategy development, and presentation design. It was exactly the kind of high-stakes, complex project that I had been preparing for throughout my career, and I approached it with the confidence that came from knowing I had earned my position through merit and hard work. On the day of the pitch, as I stood before the Midwest Industries executive team presenting our comprehensive marketing strategy, I thought about how different my life might have been if Margaret had simply allowed me to remain in the front row of that Christmas photo. Her petty act of exclusion had initiated a chain of events that led directly to this moment, standing before potential clients as the Senior Vice President of Client Strategy for Henderson Marketing, representing everything our company stood for in terms of excellence and innovation. We won the Midwest Industries account. The client executives were impressed not just by our strategic approach, but by the depth of industry knowledge and professional credibility that I brought to the presentation. It was the kind of career-defining success that validates years of hard work and positions you for continued advancement. That evening, as our team celebrated the successful pitch at a downtown restaurant, David raised his glass in a toast. To Sarah Chun, whose leadership made this victory possible, and to the entire Henderson marketing team for proving once again that excellence speaks louder than anything else. As I looked around the table at my colleagues, people who had become not just professional partners but genuine friends, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction about the journey that had brought me to this point. Margaret Henderson had tried to push me into the background of that Christmas photo, but the universe had other plans. Her attempt to diminish my professional standing had inadvertently elevated me to exactly where I was meant to be, leading strategic initiatives, building industry relationships, and contributing to Henderson Marketing's continued success at the highest levels. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's simply becoming so successful that the people who tried to hold you back become irrelevant to your story. Sometimes it's standing on a stage, holding a microphone, defining someone else's professional legacy while simultaneously establishing your own. As I drove home that night through Chicago's bustling downtown streets, I realized that I had learned something valuable about resilience, professional growth, and the power of responding to adversity with excellence rather than resentment. Margaret's jealousy had taught me to value my own worth, her exclusion had taught me to create my own opportunities, and her antagonism had taught me that the best response to small-minded behavior is to think bigger, work harder, and achieve more than anyone thinks possible. The Christmas photo incident that had seemed so humiliating at the time had become the catalyst for the most successful period of my professional life. And while Margaret Henderson would probably never understand the role she played in my advancement, I would always be grateful for the lesson she inadvertently taught me, that other people's attempts to diminish you can only succeed if you allow them to define your worth. From that point forward, I defined my own worth through the quality of my work, the strength of my professional relationships, and the impact I made on every project I touched. It was a lesson that would serve me well throughout my career, and it all started with being pushed out of a Christmas photo by someone who thought she had the power to determine my place in the world. She was wrong, and 3 months later, standing on that stage introducing her husband to 300 industry professionals, I had the opportunity to show her just how wrong she had been.